When we listen to the massive pop hits that poured out of Detroit in the 1960s, our ears naturally gravitate toward the front of the mix. We follow the soaring, immediate melodies of the vocalists, the voices that command the listener's attention. To a casual listener, these tracks feel like unadulterated pop perfection, catchy, immediate, and structurally straightforward. But if you listen closely, beneath those shimmering vocal tracks lies one of the most sophisticated musical engines ever constructed. To understand how Motown truly conquered the airwaves, we have to look past the marquee names on the album jackets and step down into a subterranean, windowless basement known simply as the Snake Pit. This was the domain of the Funk Brothers, an elite group of jazz-trained session musicians who played on more number-one hits than the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Elvis Presley, and the Beach Boys combined. They rejected the traditional role of a passive rhythm section. Instead, they utilized counterpoint, a classical concept defining the relationship between voices that are harmonically interdependent, yet independent in their rhythm and contour. The Funk Brothers' innovation was the seamless injection of this classical complexity into the DNA of 3-minute pop songs, transforming the instrumental tracks into independent melodies that actively drive the song. At the center of this shift was bassist James Jamerson. Before him, the electric bass was largely played like a surrogate tuba, mimicking simple root note patterns of a marching band. Jamerson drew from his background as an acoustic jazz contrabassist to rewrite the rules of the instrument using his 1962 Fender Precision bass, which he nicknamed the Funk Machine. He rarely stayed anchored to the root notes of a chord. Instead, he used chromatic passing tones, ghost notes, and open strings to construct a fluid, highly syncopated melody. The result was a relentlessly undulating wave of tension and release, creating an underlying hook that rivaled the vocal line itself. However, a wandering bass line can easily clutter a pop arrangement if the guitar section doesn't provide a disciplined foil. Motown's solution was a 3-guitar system. Robert White provided the warm, harmonic bedrock, often executing melodic sweeps or iconic riffs like the opening of My Girl. Eddie Willis brought the blues-infused grit, adding syncopated accents and snappy rhythm work on his Gibson Firebird. And Joe Messina provided the mathematical clockwork, anchoring the track with clean, strictly timed jazz chords on his Fender Telecaster. Rather than employing one guitarist to strum chords, this triad operated with strictly defined architectural roles to frame the rhythm section. These elements worked together in a continuous, interlocking call and response. When Jamerson's bass line stepped into a higher register, the guitars would back off, leaning into a sharp backbeat on 2 and 4. When the bass anchored down into a heavy groove, the guitars would weave melodic fills into the open space. By negotiating this sonic space, the instruments built a dense, rhythmic lattice that perfectly supported the vocalists without ever crowding them. This continuous interplay meant a Motown song never felt static. Even during a verse where the vocal melody repeated, the track underneath was constantly evolving. These evolving counter-melodies created a subtle, powerful internal momentum that kept the human ear perpetually engaged and listening. It is the defining tension of the Motown sound, music engineered with enough complexity to interest a classical scholar, yet grooved perfectly enough to make an entire generation dance. By treating the rhythm section as a canvas for independent melodies, the Funk Brothers established the template for the modern pop groove. This was brought to you by Notes and Silences. Thank you for listening.